So dire wolves went extinct nearly 14,000 years ago. So, how is it that they're back? And what an amazing thing that's going on in science and technology to have something like that occur. Do you remember? I certainly remember it really well back in 1994 when Jurassic Park came out, and I was sitting in the movie theater, and they showed sort of a funny little genome and showed the DNA structure and how they were going to pull certain DNA from a dinosaur that they'd found and then use another animal to substitute that in. And I remember thinking at that time, yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable, even though it's 30 plus years ago. And then just 2 years after that, they did Dolly, the sheep. But I remember thinking at that time, like, that doesn't sound as far-fetched. And with our emerging technology, I won't be surprised in my lifetime if we're able to pull something like that off. So Colossal Inc. is the name of the company. The founder is a guy who's a geneticist, a professor of genetics at Harvard and MIT. So his name's George Church. So he comes up in a team of a bunch of different scientists, all sorts of host of experts and specialists in their field. You might have remembered a short time ago, they came out with that woolly mouse. And I don't know if you saw that. They were starting at a smaller type of process. And I keep thinking about what are the things that this company and other companies that piggyback on their research or probably are in process right now that you and I don't know anything about, and think about what else are they going to de-extinct, to pull back that have been long gone, like I mentioned, 14,000. Luckily, at least in the direwolf case, there's a close living relative in the gray wolf. But I think of the possibilities of de-extinction. I certainly think of the possibilities probably even more of rewilding. We have a whole host of animals that are on the verge of extinction and perhaps could do or stand to have some alteration in their makeup that would allow them to have a chance in this ever-changing world to have survival going forward. But there are some funny things and some interesting things that are going to happen, before those things. I mentioned before 1996 with Dolly. Since that time, we don't hear a lot about this, or at least we haven't in a number of years. I've always had an interest in it, but they've since cloned a cat, pigs, deer, horses, mice, goats, and of course the gray wolf that I mentioned before, which is what they used a portion of to be able to bring back and reconstruct the dire wolves. They didn't use the tissue samples that have historically been used in the cloning. They used the blood of the gray wolf, and they partnered that with some other items that they had. In this case, it was a combination basically of three things among others. They had a genome, they had a 13,000-year-old tooth, they had a 72,000-year-old ear bone that they found in Idaho. The tooth was out of Ohio. They used the blood of a gray wolf, the tooth, and the ear bone to set up and reconstruct with the DNA an actual dire wolf. And you guys remember Game of Thrones when each one of the kids were gifted a dire wolf? That's probably why everyone knows the name of a dire wolf and sort of what they are. Just a really, really large, extraordinarily large for the class of wolves that we know now. But in Game of Thrones, each one of the kids had a dire wolf, and those were some serious beasts, if you remember that show. So I'll put a couple photos in of the dire wolves. Right now, they have 3 puppies that they've successfully been able to inject into the host, and that host gave a live birth of these wolves. And I just find the whole process, very, very interesting. Now, do you have risks? I mean, there are going to be some folks that are going to argue don't mess with nature, and perhaps there's some good thought. I think we want to be careful and have some pretty significant regulation on exactly what we're going to clone. And in the science fiction, the cloning goes pretty quickly from Dolly the sheep to the mouse to the pig to the horse to a human. And I don't know how far we are away from something like that, but it certainly is, I think distinctly possible if we think about the changes in medicine, genetics, and you couple a bunch of students from Harvard and MIT and put them on a task. I can almost guarantee they're going to be successful, depending on how you determine what the success is in this case. So, extinct animals, I think, are one that they probably are going to be focused on. They've definitely said that's going to be one of the focuses of the company. So they were going to start with the dire wolves, and they also are fully committed to bringing back a woolly mammoth. That would just be unbelievably fascinating to me, to have the large elephants, or the elephant was the spinoff of the woolly mammoth, and to actually bring that back. They're talking about 2029, so it's really not very far before they think that's a distinct possibility. With the success of the woolly mouse and now the success of the dire wolves, the funding is going to be pouring in, I think, for that type of genetic research, especially when you look at some of the wealth of the world is focused on worries about the changes in our climate worldwide and how some animal species, plant species, are suffering. So I could certainly see proposals that would come forward where they do some process to strengthen, the elephant population and being able to find water, or something where they change the need to have water. The survival of the polar bear with the melting ice caps and the ice not freezing for them to be able to hunt the seals. I think of that as a distinct possibility as well. But there are thousands of possibilities, and whether they focus on, those that are truly extinct, or if they go back and help some of the ones that are right on the margin of disappearing from the world. Love to know your take on that. Maybe you think I'm all wet and this is a terrible thing and we shouldn't play with that sort of thing, but fascinated with the dire wolves. I'll just be amazed if they're going to come back with a woolly mammoth. I can volunteer what I think they should, do from there. I'd like to bring back the velociraptor and then drop a few of them in San Francisco, maybe Portland, and just see what happens. That would be at the top of my list of what I'd like to see when they do this genetic engineering. So, in jest. So anyway, let me know what you think. Just having some fun. Mom and I were sitting around talking about this, and I thought, you know what? My crazy audience would love to hear a story completely random and off topic. So there it is. And so I'll talk to you guys in a couple days. Let me know what you think. Bye.